The Christmas lights were blinking soft and slow against the window. Red, green, white, red again. I had just settled into my recliner, the one with the worn armrest where my hand always rests, when my son's voice cut through the silence like a blade. "Dad, wait." I turned to look at him. 32 years old now, a grown man with his mother's eyes and my stubborn jaw. But in that moment, his face looked exactly like it did when he was 7 and had broken the garage window with a baseball. Guilty, scared, and desperate for me not to find out why. "Do not open the gifts yet," he said. I chuckled a little, reaching for my reading glasses on the side table. "What are you talking about, Noah? It is Christmas Eve. We always open one gift each before midnight. We have been doing it since you were in diapers." But he did not smile back. "Before I tell you what happened, do me a favor. If you love stories like this, subscribe right now. It takes 1 second and it helps more than you know. Now let me take you back." Instead, his eyes moved to the tree, specifically to a box I had not noticed before. It was tucked behind the others, wrapped in deep green paper with a gold ribbon. Elegant, intentional, and completely unfamiliar. I did not put that box there, and from the look on my son's face, he knew exactly where it came from. "My name is Donald Mercer. I am 60 years old. I am a retired electrician, 37 years, with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. Local 683, out of Columbus, Ohio. I have wired factories, hospitals, schools, and more homes than I can count. I raised my son alone for the last 19 years, ever since his mother walked out on us 2 days after Christmas in 2005. He was 13 years old, 8th grade, right in the middle of that awkward age when a boy needs both his parents more than ever. But she left anyway. Her name was Carolyn. And on that Christmas Eve, sitting in my living room with a mysterious green box under the tree and my son looking like he might be sick, I realized something that made my chest go cold. That box was from her. After 19 years of silence, my ex-wife had somehow reached back into our lives, and my son had helped her do it. Let me take you back so you understand how we got here. Carolyn and I met in the spring of 1985. I was 21 years old, fresh out of my apprenticeship, working my first real job as a journeyman electrician on a commercial project downtown. She was 20 years old, a receptionist at a dental office, 2 blocks from the job site. I used to walk past that office every day on my lunch break, and every day she would be sitting at the front desk near the window, pretty as a photograph. It took me 3 weeks to work up the courage to walk in and pretend I needed to schedule a cleaning. She saw right through me. She smiled and said, "You do not have a dentist, do you?" I said, "No, ma'am. But I would like to have your phone number." She laughed. She wrote it on the back of an appointment card, and that was the beginning of everything. We got married in October of 1987. It was a small ceremony at her aunt's church in Reynoldsburg. I wore a rented suit that was a little too big in the shoulders. She wore her grandmother's dress, taken in at the waist. We could not afford a honeymoon, so we spent 3 days at a cabin in Hocking Hills, cooking canned soup on a hot plate and staying warm the old-fashioned way. I thought I was the luckiest man alive. Noah came along in 1992. He was born on a cold February morning, 6 pounds even, with a full head of dark hair and lungs like a union foreman. I held him in the delivery room and made a promise right then and there. I told him, out loud, that I would never leave him, that I would work every day of my life to give him a better childhood than I had, that he would always know his father loved him. I kept that promise. His mother did not keep hers. For the first 10 years of our marriage, things were good. Not perfect, but good. We had struggles, like any young couple. Money was tight. I worked overtime whenever I could get it. Sometimes 60, sometimes 70 hours a week. Carolyn stayed home with Noah until he started school. Then she went back to work part-time as a bookkeeper for a small insurance agency. We bought a house in 1994. It was a little 3-bedroom ranch on a quiet street in Gahanna. It needed work, but the bones were solid. I spent every weekend for 2 years fixing it up. New wiring, new plumbing, and I refinished the hardwood floors myself. Carolyn used to joke that I loved that house more than I loved her. I laughed it off at the time. But looking back, I wonder if she meant it more than I realized. The truth is, I was always working. Even when I was home, my mind was on the next job, the next paycheck, the next project. I told myself I was doing it for the family, for Noah, for our future. But Carolyn needed something I was not giving her. Attention, I suppose. Time. The feeling that she was more than just a partner in running a household. I did not see it then. I was too busy being proud of what I was building. She started to change around 2001. Nothing dramatic at first. She would be quiet at dinner, distracted. She started going out with coworkers more often. Just for drinks, she would say. She joined a book club that met on Thursday nights, though I never once saw her reading a book. I did not ask questions. I told myself she deserved time with her friends. She had been cooped up raising Noah and keeping house for years. Why should she not have a social life? But the distance between us kept growing. We would lie in bed at night like two strangers on a bus. She would face the wall. I would face the ceiling. Sometimes I would reach over and touch her shoulder, and she would flinch like my hand was made of ice. I asked her once if something was wrong. She said, "I am fine, Don, just tired." That was her answer for everything. Fine, tired. I should have pushed harder. I should have sat her down and demanded the truth. But I was raised to believe that a man provides and a woman nurtures, and as long as I was holding up my end, everything would work out. I was a fool. Christmas of 2005 started out normal. Noah was 13 years old, in that lanky, awkward phase where his legs seemed too long for his body and his voice cracked every other sentence. He had asked for a PlayStation Portable that year, and I had worked 3 weekends of overtime to afford it. Carolyn seemed distant, but she always seemed distant by then. I had gotten used to it. We decorated the tree together on Christmas Eve, the 3 of us, like we did every year. Noah hung the ornaments. I put the star on top. Carolyn made hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. For a few hours, it almost felt like old times. We opened our one gift each at midnight. It was our tradition. And then Noah went to bed, clutching his new PlayStation Portable like it was made of gold. Carolyn and I sat in the living room after he went upstairs. The tree lights were blinking. Red, green, white, red, again. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "Don, I need to tell you something." My stomach dropped. You know that feeling when you sense bad news before it arrives? Like your body knows something your mind has not caught up to yet? I said, "What is it?" She took a breath, and then she told me. There was someone else, a man named Greg from her book club. They had been seeing each other for almost a year. She said she did not plan for it to happen. She said she still cared about me, but she was not in love with me anymore, and she could not keep pretending. I sat there in my recliner, the same recliner I am sitting in now, 19 years later, and I felt the whole world tilt sideways. I asked her, "What about Noah?" She started crying then. She said she had thought about it a lot. She said she thought it would be better for him to live with me. That I was the stable one, the one with the house and the steady job. Greg had a small apartment. They were planning to move to Cincinnati together. There was not room for a teenage boy. There was not room. Those words burned into my brain like a brand. She was leaving, and she was not taking our son because there was not room. 2 days after Christmas, she packed 3 suitcases, kissed Noah on the forehead while he stood frozen in the hallway, and drove away in a car I later found out Greg had bought for her. Noah did not cry. He just walked to his room, closed the door, and did not come out until dinner. I stood at the living room window and watched her taillights disappear down the street. The Christmas tree was still up. The ornaments were still hanging. The star was still on top. And, just like that, my marriage was over. The next few years were the hardest of my life. I will not pretend I handled it well. There were nights I sat in this chair after Noah went to bed and stared at the wall until 2 in the morning, trying to figure out where I went wrong. There were weekends I could not get out of bed. There were moments I thought about giving up entirely. But I had a son, and I had made him a promise, so I got up. Every single day, I got up. I made breakfast. I packed lunches. I went to work. I came home. I helped with homework. I went to basketball games and parent-teacher conferences and school plays. I learned to do things I had never done before. Laundry, grocery shopping, cooking meals that were not from a can or a box. I learned to braid hair for when Noah's little cousin came to visit. I learned to listen. Really listen. When my son needed to talk, and slowly, painfully, we rebuilt our lives. Noah never talked about his mother. Not once in 19 years. I thought he had made peace with it. I thought he had accepted that she was gone and moved on. I should have known better. Children do not forget. They just learn to bury things deep. Now let me bring you back to that Christmas Eve. The green box under the tree, my son's guilty face. I looked at Noah and asked, as calmly as I could manage, "Son, where did that box come from?" He swallowed hard. His Adam's apple bobbed in his throat. "Dad," he said, "I need to tell you something. And I need you to hear me out before you get upset." I felt my jaw tighten. 37 years of union work teaches you patience. It teaches you to stay calm when the situation gets tense. But this was different. This was personal. "I am listening," I said. Noah sat down on the couch across from me. He clasped his hands together, the way he always does when he is nervous. "A few months ago," he began, "someone reached out to me online. Through Facebook. I did not recognize the name at first, but then I realized." He paused. "It was Mom." The word hit me like a punch to the chest. Mom. He had not called her that in 19 years. She was always Carolyn, or her, or just silence. "She said she has been sober for 5 years," Noah continued. "She said she made a lot of mistakes. She said she thinks about us every day. She wanted to know if I would be willing to talk." I sat very still. "And you said yes," I said. "It was not a question." He nodded, his eyes wet. "I am sorry, Dad. I know I should have told you. But I did not know how, and I thought maybe if I heard her out first, I could figure out if she was serious before I brought you into it." I looked at the green box under the tree. "She sent that," I said. "She brought it herself," Noah said quietly. "This afternoon, while you were napping. She drove up from Cincinnati. She wanted to leave it for you. She said it is something she should have given you a long time ago." My hands were trembling. Not from anger. From something I could not name. 19 years. 19 years of silence. Of raising our son alone. Of wondering if she ever thought about us. If she ever regretted what she did. And now she was here. In my city. Leaving gifts under my tree like nothing had happened. I wanted to be furious. But the truth is, I was terrified. Because some part of me, some small, buried part, had been waiting for this moment. And I was not sure what to do with it. Before I continue, let me ask you something. You are still here. You are invested. But have you subscribed? 90% of people watching this are not subscribed. They watch. They enjoy. They leave without supporting. Do not be that person. One click. That is all I am asking. And if you refuse to subscribe, tell me why in the comments. I genuinely want to know. Now, let me continue. I sat there in my recliner, staring at that green box like it was a bomb that might go off at any moment. Noah was watching me. Waiting. I could feel his eyes on my face, searching for a reaction. But I did not give him one. Not yet. 37 years of working with electricity teaches you something important. You do not touch a live wire until you know exactly what you are dealing with. You assess, you measure, you think before you act. So that is what I did. I took a slow breath, then another. "How long?" I finally asked. Noah blinked. "What? How long have you been talking to her?" He looked down at his hands. "About 4 months. 4 months? 4 months of phone calls, messages, conversations. 4 months of my son building a relationship with the woman who abandoned him, and I had no idea. I thought I knew everything about Noah. I thought we told each other everything. We had been through so much together. The two of us against the world. That is what I always said, but he had been keeping this from me, hiding it, like he was ashamed, or like he thought I could not handle it. Maybe he was right. Why did you not tell me? I asked. My voice came out quieter than I intended. Noah's jaw tightened. He looked up at me, and I saw something in his eyes I had not seen in a long time. Defiance, but also fear. Because I knew how you would react, he said. I knew you would shut it down before I even had a chance to hear what she had to say. You do not know that. Yes, I do, Dad. His voice was stronger now. Every time her name came up when I was a kid, you changed the subject. Every time I asked about her, you gave me the same answer. She left. She made her choice. End of story. I opened my mouth to argue, but he kept going. I get it. I do. She hurt you. She hurt both of us. But I spent my whole life with questions I could not ask. And when she reached out, I thought maybe I could finally get some answers. The room was quiet, except for the soft crackle of the fireplace and the hum of the Christmas tree lights. I wanted to be angry. Part of me was angry, but a bigger part of me understood exactly what he was saying. Because I had done the same thing. I had buried Carolyn so deep that I never gave Noah the chance to process what happened. I thought I was protecting him, but maybe I was just protecting myself. What did she tell you? I asked. Noah hesitated. Then he leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. She told me about the drinking, he said. She told me it started before she left, that she was self-medicating for depression and anxiety. She said she knew she was falling apart, but she did not know how to ask for help. I listened without interrupting. She told me about Greg, how the affair started, how she convinced herself that running away was the only option. She said she was so deep in her own shame that she could not face us. So she left. My chest tightened. Hearing it laid out like that, from my son's mouth, made it feel fresh again. Like the wound had never really healed. It had just scabbed over. She said leaving me was the biggest mistake of her life. Noah continued. She said she thought about calling 1,000 times but could never go through with it. She was afraid I would hate her. Afraid you would hang up the phone. I probably would have, I admitted. Noah nodded slowly. I know. That is why she reached out to me first. She figured I might give her a chance, and if I did, maybe I could help her find a way back to you. I let out a long breath. So this whole thing was a setup. No. Noah shook his head firmly. It was not like that. She did not ask me to trick you or manipulate you. She just wanted a chance. One chance. To apologize, to explain, to see if there was anything left worth saving. I looked at the green box again. And that? I asked, nodding toward it. She said it would explain everything better than she ever could. I did not open the box, not yet. Instead, I stood up from my recliner and walked to the window. The snow had started falling heavier now, thick white flakes drifting down through the glow of the streetlights. The neighborhood was quiet, everyone tucked inside with their families, enjoying Christmas Eve the way it was supposed to be enjoyed. And here I was, standing in my living room, my whole world turned upside down. I thought about Carolyn, the young woman I had fallen in love with all those years ago. The way she laughed, the way she used to rest her head on my shoulder when we watched television at night. The way she looked at me on our wedding day, like I was the only man in the world. Where did that woman go? When did she become someone who could walk away from her own child? I had spent 19 years hating her, blaming her, telling myself I was better off without her. And in some ways, that was true. Noah and I had built a good life. We did not need her. But hate is a heavy thing to carry. And standing there by the window, I realized just how tired I was. Dad? Noah's voice pulled me back. I turned to face him. Are you okay? He asked. I almost laughed. No, son, I am not okay. But I will be. He stood up and walked over to me. For a moment, we just stood there side by side, looking out at the snow. "I am sorry I did not tell you," he said quietly. "I should have. I just did not know how." I put my hand on his shoulder. "I know. And I am sorry too." He looked at me, surprised. "For what?" "For making you feel like you could not talk to me. For shutting down every conversation about your mother before it even started. I thought I was protecting you. But I think I was just running from my own pain." Noah did not say anything. He just nodded. And in that nod, I felt something shift between us. A wall coming down, a door opening. The phone rang. The sound cut through the silence like a siren. Both of us jumped. I looked at the caller ID. Unknown number. But I knew. Somehow, I knew exactly who it was. I picked up the phone and held it to my ear. "Hello?" There was a pause. Then a voice I had not heard in 19 years. "Don?" My heart stopped. Just for a second. Then it started again, pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. "Carolyn," I said. I heard her breath catch on the other end of the line, like she had not expected me to answer, like she had been preparing herself to leave another voicemail that would never be returned. "I was not sure you would pick up," she said. Her voice was softer than I remembered. Older, more fragile. "Neither was I admitted. Another pause. The silence was heavy with everything unsaid. "Did you get the gift?" she asked. I looked at the green box sitting under the tree. "I did. I have not opened it yet." "That is okay. I understand if you do not want to. I needed you to have it. I have been holding on to it for too long." My grip tightened on the phone. "Why now, Carolyn? After all these years, why now?" She was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was trembling. "Because I am dying, Don." The words hit me like a freight train. Dying. I lowered myself onto the arm of the couch, my legs suddenly unsteady. "What do you mean?" I asked. "Cancer," she said. "Stage 4. They found it 8 months ago. I have been doing treatment, but it is not working the way they hoped. The doctors say I have maybe 6 months. Maybe less." I could not speak. My mind was racing, trying to process what she was telling me. Carolyn. Dying. The woman I had loved. The woman I had hated. The woman I had tried so hard to forget. "I know I do not have any right to ask you for anything," she continued. "I gave up that right when I walked out. But I could not leave this world without telling you how sorry I am. Without telling Noah how much I love him. Without giving you what is in that box." I looked at Noah. His face had gone pale. He could not hear her words, but he could see from my expression that something was very wrong. "Carolyn," I started. But I did not know what to say. "I am at the Hampton Inn on Broad Street," she said. "Room 214. I came here hoping you might be willing to see me. But if you do not want to, I understand. I will leave in the morning and never bother you again. I just needed you to know the truth." The line went quiet. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, my whole body numb. "Don," she asked, "are you still there?" "I am here," I said. "I am so sorry. For everything. I know those words are not enough, but they are all I have." I closed my eyes. 19 years of anger and hurt and loneliness swirled inside me. But underneath all of it, buried so deep I had almost forgotten it was there, was something else. Love, not the kind of love I felt when we were young. That love had died a long time ago, but a different kind. The kind you feel for someone who was once a part of you. The kind that never fully goes away, no matter how hard you try to kill it. "Stay there," I said. "I am coming." Noah grabbed my arm as I hung up the phone. "Dad, what is going on? What did she say?" I looked at my son. "My boy, the one good thing that came out of my marriage to Carolyn. Your mother is sick," I said. "Very sick. She is here in town. She wants to see us." Noah's face went through a dozen emotions in the span of 3 seconds. Shock, fear, confusion, and then something that looked almost like hope. "Are we going?" he asked. I grabbed my coat from the hook by the door. "Yes, we are going." The drive to the hotel took 15 minutes. 15 minutes of silence, broken only by the sound of the windshield wipers pushing snow off the glass. Noah sat in the passenger seat, staring straight ahead. I could tell he was thinking, processing, trying to prepare himself for what we were about to walk into. I was doing the same thing. What do you say to someone who abandoned you 19 years ago and is now dying? How do you even begin that conversation? I did not have answers. All I had was a feeling in my gut that told me I needed to be there. That if I did not go, I would regret it for the rest of my life. We pulled into the hotel parking lot. The Hampton Inn on Broad Street. Nothing fancy. Just a standard chain hotel with a lit-up sign and a mostly empty lot. I parked the car and turned off the engine. Neither of us moved. You ready? I asked. Noah took a deep breath. No, but let us go anyway. We walked through the lobby and took the elevator to the second floor. Room 214 was at the end of the hall. The door was plain and ordinary, just like every other door in the building. But what was behind it was anything but ordinary. I raised my hand to knock. Then I stopped. Whatever happens in there, I said to Noah, I want you to know something. I am proud of you. For reaching out to her. For giving her a chance when I never could. That took courage. Noah's eyes glistened. Thanks, Dad. I knocked on the door. A few seconds passed. Then I heard footsteps. The lock clicked. The door opened. And there she was. Carolyn, 19 years older. Thinner than I remembered. Her hair was shorter now, streaked with gray. Her face was pale and drawn. The unmistakable look of someone who had been fighting a battle they were losing. But her eyes were the same. That same deep green I had fallen in love with all those years ago. She looked at me. Then at Noah. And she started to cry. You came, she whispered. You actually came. I did not know what to say. So, I just nodded. She stepped back and opened the door wider. Please, she said. Come in. Quick pause. Do you know how long it takes to create a story like this? And all I ask in return is one click on that subscribe button. If you are enjoying this, prove it. Subscribe now. If you have already subscribed, thank you. You are the reason I keep going. Back to the story. The hotel room was small and plain. A queen-sized bed with a beige comforter. A desk with a lamp. A television mounted on the wall. The kind of room you stay in when you are passing through, not when you are planning to stay. But there were touches of Carolyn everywhere. A small suitcase in the corner, neatly packed. A bottle of prescription pills on the nightstand. A worn Bible on the desk, its pages soft from years of handling. And on the bed, a cardboard box filled with what looked like old photographs and papers. She had been preparing for this moment, maybe for months, maybe for years. Carolyn closed the door behind us and gestured toward the two chairs by the window. Please, sit down, she said. Her voice was shaky, like she was holding herself together by sheer willpower. Noah and I sat. She lowered herself onto the edge of the bed, facing us. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The silence was thick with everything that had been left unsaid for 19 years. Finally, Carolyn took a deep breath. I do not even know where to begin, she said. I have rehearsed this conversation in my head 1,000 times. But now that you are here, all those words seem so small. I leaned back in my chair. Then start at the beginning. She nodded slowly. Her hands were trembling in her lap. The beginning, she repeated. Okay. When I left, she said, I told myself it was the right thing to do. I told myself you and Noah would be better off without me. That I was too broken, too far gone, to be the wife and mother you deserved. She paused, gathering herself. But the truth is, I was a coward. I was drowning in my own pain. And instead of reaching out for help, I ran. I ran because it was easier than facing what I had become. I listened without interrupting. Beside me, Noah was completely still, his eyes fixed on his mother. The drinking started small, Carolyn continued. A glass of wine at night to help me relax, then 2 glasses, then a bottle, Then I started hiding bottles around the house so you would not know how much I was going through. I thought back to those years. The years when she seemed distant and distracted. The years when I told myself it was just stress or fatigue. I had missed all the signs. I was depressed, she said. Deeply depressed, but I did not know how to talk about it. Back then, people did not talk about mental health the way they do now. I thought I was just weak. I thought if I tried harder, I could fix myself. She shook her head, a bitter smile crossing her face. I could not fix myself. So, I found someone who made me feel like I was not broken. Greg. The name still stung, even after all these years. I am not going to make excuses for the affair, she said. It was wrong. I knew it was wrong even while it was happening, but I was so desperate to feel something other than the emptiness inside me. And Greg was there. He paid attention to me. He made me feel wanted. She looked directly at me. That does not excuse what I did, Don. Nothing excuses it. I betrayed you. I betrayed our marriage. I betrayed our son. And I have spent every day since then living with the weight of that. Noah shifted in his chair. His voice was tight when he spoke. Why did you leave me? The question hung in the air like a knife. Carolyn's face crumpled. Tears spilled down her cheeks. That is the question I have dreaded most, she said. Because there is no answer that will ever be good enough. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. I told myself I was protecting you, that you needed stability, and I could not give you that. Greg and I were starting over in a new city. We had nothing. A tiny apartment. No money. No plan. I told myself you would be better off with your father, that Don would take care of you the way I never could. She took a shuddering breath. But the truth is, I was ashamed. I could not look you in the eye and explain what I had done. I could not face the questions you would ask. So I took the coward's way out. I kissed you goodbye and walked away and told myself it was for the best. Noah's jaw was clenched. I could see the muscles working in his face. For the best, he repeated. I was 13 years old. I needed my mother. And you left me. I know, Carolyn whispered. I know. And I am so sorry. Sorry does not fix it. Noah said. His voice cracked. Do you have any idea what it was like? Do you have any idea how many nights I cried myself to sleep wondering what I did wrong? Wondering why I was not enough to make you stay? Carolyn was sobbing now. You did nothing wrong. It was never about you. It was always about me. My failures. My weakness. You were perfect. Noah, you were always perfect. Then why did you leave me? Because I hated myself too much to stay. The room went quiet. I watched my son and his mother, both of them broken open by years of pain and silence. And I realized something. This was not just Carolyn's wound to heal. It was all of ours. I had spent 19 years being the strong one, the provider, the protector, but I had never given Noah the space to grieve his mother. I had never let him be angry or sad or confused. I had just pushed forward, day after day, pretending that everything was fine. It was not fine. It had never been fine. Carolyn, I said. She looked up at me, her face wet with tears. I am not going to pretend that I understand everything you went through, I said. I am not going to pretend that I forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. But I am here. And I am listening. That is more than I could have offered you yesterday. She nodded, unable to speak. What happened with Greg? I asked. She let out a long, tired breath. We lasted about 3 years, she said. Turns out, a relationship built on lies and escape does not have a very strong foundation. He left me for someone else. Ironic? Is it not? I did not respond. After that, I hit rock bottom, she continued. I was alone in Cincinnati with no job, no money, and a drinking problem that was completely out of control. I lost my apartment. I was living in my car for a while. I almost died from alcohol poisoning one night. Woke up in the hospital with a tube down my throat and a doctor telling me I had a choice to make. She paused. That was the wake-up call I needed. I checked myself into rehab the next week. Spent 90 days there. It was the hardest thing I have ever done, but it saved my life. You have been sober for 5 years? I asked. She nodded. 5 years, 2 months, and 11 days. I count every single one. Why did you not reach out sooner? She looked down at her hands. Fear. She said simply. I was terrified. Terrified that you would reject me. Terrified that Noah would hate me. Terrified that reaching out would only cause more pain. So, I stayed away. I told myself it was better that way. What changed? She met my eyes. The diagnosis. When the doctors told me I had cancer, everything became very clear, very fast. All the things I thought I had time to do someday. Suddenly, I did not have time anymore. I realized that if I died without telling you both how sorry I am, without trying to make things right, I would never forgive myself. She reached over to the cardboard box on the bed. I have been going through old things, she said. Things I have kept all these years. I wanted to give them to you, to Noah. Things that might help you understand who I was before everything fell apart. She pulled out a stack of photographs and handed them to Noah. He took them slowly, flipping through them one by one. His face softened as he looked at each image. That is you on your first birthday, Carolyn said, pointing to one of the photos. I made that cake myself. It was lopsided and the frosting was a mess, but you loved it. Noah smiled faintly. I have never seen this picture before. I took most of them with me when I left, she admitted. I should not have. They belonged to you. But I was selfish. I wanted something to hold on to. She handed him more photos. Him as a toddler. Him on his first day of school. Him at a little league game, holding a bat that was almost as big as he was. I looked at these every single day, she said. Every single day for 19 years. You were always with me, Noah, even when I was not with you. Noah set the photos down. His eyes were red, but he was not crying anymore. I do not know how to feel right now, he said. Part of me is so angry I can barely breathe. But another part of me is just relieved. Relieved to finally have answers. Relieved to see you again. Carolyn reached out and took his hand. You do not have to figure it out tonight, she said. You do not have to forgive me. You do not have to feel anything you do not feel. I just needed you to know the truth. That is all I wanted. Noah nodded slowly. Then he did something that surprised me. He stood up, walked over to his mother, and wrapped his arms around her. Carolyn let out a sound that was half sob, half laugh. She held on to him, like he was the only thing keeping her alive. And maybe, in that moment, he was. I watched them, mother and son. 19 years of separation dissolving in a single embrace. And I felt something shift inside me too. After a long moment, Noah pulled back. He wiped his eyes and returned to his chair. Carolyn looked at me. Don, she said, I know I have no right to ask you for anything, but there is something I need to say to you specifically. I braced myself. Thank you, she said. I blinked. That was not what I expected. Thank you for raising our son. Thank you for being there when I was not. Thank you for teaching him to be the man he is today. I know I do not deserve any credit for how he turned out. That is all you. And I am so grateful. My throat tightened. You did an amazing job, Don. Better than I ever could have done. Noah is kind and strong and honest. He is everything I hoped he would be. And that is because of you. I did not trust myself to speak. So I just nodded. I also need to apologize, she continued. Not just for leaving, but for never giving you a chance to understand why. I shut you out completely. I let you spend 19 years thinking you did something wrong, thinking you were not enough. And I am sorry. She paused. You were enough, Don. You were always enough. The problem was never you. It was me. I was too broken to see what I had. And by the time I realized it, I had already destroyed everything. I sat there for a long moment, letting her words sink in. 19 years of anger, 19 years of blame, 19 years of wondering what I could have done differently. And now, finally, I had answers. They did not fix everything. They could not undo the pain or erase the memories. But they helped, more than I expected. Carolyn, I said, part of me still hates you for what you did. Part of me probably always will. She nodded, accepting it. But another part of me is tired. I continued. Tired of carrying all this bitterness around. Tired of letting what happened define who I am. You made mistakes. Big ones. But so have I. And holding on to this anger is not helping anyone, least of all me. I took a breath. So I am not going to say I forgive you. Not yet. That is going to take time. But I am willing to try. For Noah's sake. And maybe for my own. Carolyn's eyes filled with fresh tears. That is more than I deserve, she whispered. Probably, I agreed. But it is Christmas Eve, and I am too old to keep fighting ghosts. The three of us sat in that hotel room for another hour, talking, remembering, crying, laughing, even, at a few old memories that had somehow survived the wreckage. It was not a perfect reunion. It was awkward and painful and messy. But it was real. And after 19 years of silence, real was enough. Finally, Carolyn looked at the clock on the nightstand. It is getting late, she said. You two should get home. It is Christmas Eve. Noah shook his head. We are not leaving you here alone. Carolyn smiled sadly. I appreciate that, honey. But I will be fine. I have spent a lot of Christmases alone. One more will not hurt. I looked at Noah. Then back at Carolyn. No, I said. She frowned. No? You are not spending Christmas alone. Not this year. I stood up and grabbed my coat. Get your things. Carolyn stared at me like I had lost my mind. Don, I could not possibly. You can, and you will, I said. We have a guest room. It is not fancy, but it is warm. And nobody should be alone on Christmas. Noah was already on his feet, grabbing Carolyn's suitcase. He is right, Mom. Come home with us. Carolyn looked back and forth between us, tears streaming down her face. I do not know what to say, she whispered. Then do not say anything, I replied. Just come. We drove back through the snow-covered streets, Carolyn in the back seat, Noah beside me up front. The radio was playing Christmas carols softly. The windshield wipers kept a steady rhythm. Nobody talked. But it was not an uncomfortable silence. It was the silence of people who had finally said what needed to be said. When we pulled into the driveway, the house was exactly as we had left it. The Christmas lights twinkling in the window, the tree glowing in the living room, the green box still sitting on the coffee table, unopened. Carolyn stood in the doorway, looking at the home she had walked away from 19 years ago. It looks the same, she said softly. Almost exactly the same. Some things do not change, I said. She smiled faintly. And some things do. We helped her settle into the guest room. Noah brought her extra blankets. I made sure she had water and her medication within reach. Before we said goodnight, she grabbed my hand. Thank you, Don, for everything. I do not deserve this kindness. I looked at her. This woman I had loved. This woman I had hated. This woman who was dying. Merry Christmas, Carolyn, I said. She squeezed my hand. Merry Christmas, Don. Noah and I returned to the living room. The fire had died down to embers, but the tree was still bright. The green box sat on the coffee table, waiting. Are you going to open it now? Noah asked. I picked up the box, turned it over in my hands, felt its weight. I think it is time, I said. Noah sat beside me as I carefully untied the gold ribbon and peeled back the green wrapping paper. Inside was a wooden box, old and worn, with a small brass latch. I opened it, and my heart stopped. Inside the wooden box were 2 items wrapped in faded tissue paper. My hands trembled as I lifted the first one out. It was small and light. I peeled back the tissue carefully, like I was handling something sacred. And in a way, I was. It was a photograph, old and worn at the edges, the colors slightly faded from time. But I recognized it immediately. It was a picture of the three of us. Me, Carolyn, and Noah. Taken on Noah's first Christmas in 1992. In the photo, I was sitting on the couch in my old flannel robe, holding Noah in my arms. He was just 10 months old, wearing a tiny red Santa hat that kept slipping down over his eyes. Carolyn was beside me, her head resting on my shoulder, laughing at something I had said. The Christmas tree was behind us, covered in lights and tinsel. We looked so happy, so full of hope, so completely unaware of what was coming. I stared at that photograph for a long time. My eyes burned, but I refused to blink. I did not want to miss a single detail. "I remember that Christmas," I said quietly. "Your grandmother took that picture. She said we looked like a greeting card." Noah leaned in to look. His face softened. "I have never seen this photo," he said. "Neither have I. Not in years. I thought it was lost." I turned the photograph over. On the back, in Carolyn's handwriting, were 3 words: "My whole world." I set the photograph down gently and reached for the second item in the box. This one was heavier, wrapped in the same faded tissue paper. I unwrapped it slowly, my heart pounding in my chest. It was a wooden star, hand-carved from oak, with delicate edges and a small hook at the top for hanging. The wood was old and worn smooth from years of handling. There was a small chip on one of the points, but otherwise it was perfect. I knew this star. I had made it myself. It was the very first Christmas gift I ever gave to Carolyn. Back in 1986, before we were married, I was just a young apprentice with no money and no prospects. But I wanted to give her something special, something that came from my own hands. So I spent 3 weeks carving that star in my father's garage, sanding it down until it was smooth, polishing it until it gleamed. I gave it to her on Christmas Eve and told her that one day, when we had a home of our own, it would go on top of our tree. And it did. Every Christmas for 18 years, that star sat at the very top of our tree. It was the first decoration we put up and the last one we took down. It was our tradition, our symbol, our promise to each other. When Carolyn left, the star disappeared with her. I assumed she had thrown it away or left it behind at Greg's apartment. I never expected to see it again. But here it was, in my hands. After 19 years, I could not hold it in anymore. The tears came. Slow at first, then faster. I sat there on my couch, holding that wooden star, and I cried like I had not cried in decades. Noah put his hand on my shoulder. He did not say anything. He did not need to. All those years, all that pain, all that anger and resentment and loneliness, it all came pouring out of me in that moment. I cried for the marriage I lost. I cried for the family that was torn apart. I cried for the young man I used to be, full of dreams and hope, who had no idea how hard life could become. And I cried for Carolyn, for the woman she was before everything fell apart, for the woman she tried to become, for the time we would never get back. When the tears finally stopped, I wiped my face with the back of my hand and took a deep breath. Noah was still beside me, patient, steady, the son I had raised, the man I was proud of. "Are you okay, Dad?" he asked. I nodded slowly. "I will be." I looked at the wooden star in my hands. Then I looked at the Christmas tree across the room. The star on top was a plastic one I had bought at a department store years ago. Cheap, impersonal, nothing like this. I stood up and walked to the tree. Noah watched as I reached up and removed the plastic star. Then I placed the wooden one in its rightful spot, right at the very top, where it belonged. The tree lights caught the polished wood and made it glow, warm and golden, like a piece of the past brought back to life. "There," I said quietly. "That is where it should be." I returned to the couch and picked up the photograph again. Noah leaned over to look at it with me. "We look so happy," he said. "We were," I replied. For a while, we really were. He was quiet for a moment. Then he asked, "Do you think we can be happy again? All of us?" It was a big question. Maybe the biggest question anyone had ever asked me. I thought about everything that had happened. The betrayal, the abandonment, the years of silence, the anger I had carried like a stone in my chest. But I also thought about tonight. The conversation in the hotel room, the honesty, the tears, the apology that was 19 years overdue. And I thought about Carolyn, sleeping in my guest room, dying of cancer, alone in the world except for the family she had walked away from. "I do not know," I said honestly, "but I think we can try." Noah nodded. That seemed to be enough for him. We sat together in the quiet living room, the fire reduced to glowing embers, the Christmas tree lights twinkling softly. The clock on the mantel showed it was past midnight. Christmas Day had officially arrived. "Merry Christmas, Dad," Noah said. "Merry Christmas, son." He stood up and stretched. "I should get some sleep. It has been a long night." "It has," I agreed. "But a good one. Strange, but good." He smiled. "Yeah, strange, but good." He headed toward the stairs, then stopped and turned back. "Dad, yes, thank you. For being open to this. For letting her come here. I know it was not easy." I looked at my son, 32 years old, a man now. But in that moment, I saw the little boy who used to climb into my lap and ask me to read him stories. "Some things are worth being uncomfortable for," I said. "Family is one of them." He nodded. "Good night, Dad." "Good night, Noah." After he went upstairs, I sat alone in the living room for a while longer. The house was quiet, peaceful. The snow had stopped falling outside, and through the window, I could see a blanket of white covering the yard, sparkling under the streetlights. I looked at the photograph in my hands one more time. My whole world. That is what she had written on the back. For years, I had convinced myself that Carolyn never cared, that she left because we meant nothing to her, that she was selfish and cold and incapable of love. But this photograph told a different story. So did the wooden star. So did the tears she had cried tonight. So did the 5 years of sobriety and the courage it took to reach out after so long. People are complicated. That is what I was learning. You can love someone and still hurt them. You can make terrible mistakes and still deserve a second chance. You can be broken for years and still find a way to heal. I did not know what the future held. I did not know how much time Carolyn had left or what our relationship would look like going forward. But I knew one thing for certain. I was done holding on to hate. It had not protected me. It had not made me stronger. It had only made me tired and bitter and lonely. I was 60 years old, too old for grudges, too old for regrets, too old to waste whatever time I had left being angry at ghosts. It was time to let go. I placed the photograph on the mantel, right next to the clock, where I could see it every day. Then I turned off the Christmas tree lights and headed upstairs. As I passed the guest room, I paused. The door was slightly open. I could hear Carolyn breathing softly inside. Asleep. I stood there for a moment, just listening. Then I whispered, so quietly that no one could hear, "Welcome home, Carolyn." And I meant it. Christmas morning dawned cold and bright. I woke up early, as I always do. The house was still quiet. I made my way downstairs and started a pot of coffee, the familiar smell filling the kitchen. Through the window, I watched the sun rise over the snow-covered neighborhood. Everything was white and clean and new. A fresh start. I heard footsteps on the stairs. Slow and careful. Carolyn appeared in the kitchen doorway. She was wearing a bathrobe I had left for her hair slightly messy from sleep. She looked tired, but there was something different in her eyes, a lightness that had not been there the night before. "Good morning," she said softly. "Good morning. Coffee? Please." I poured her a cup and handed it to her. She wrapped her hands around it like it was precious. "I did not sleep much," she admitted. "I kept thinking I would wake up, and this would all be a dream." "It is not a dream," I said. She smiled faintly. "I know. That is the miracle. Noah came down a few minutes later. His hair was sticking up in all directions, the way it always does when he first wakes up. "Merry Christmas," he said, yawning. "Merry Christmas," Carolyn and I replied in unison. The three of us stood there in the kitchen, holding our coffee cups, the morning light streaming through the window. It was awkward and strange and completely surreal, but it was also beautiful. "So," Noah said, "what happens now?" Carolyn looked at me. I looked at her. "Now," I said, "we make breakfast. Then, we open presents. Then, we see what comes next." Noah grinned. "Sounds like a plan." We spent the morning together, the three of us, like a family. I made pancakes, the way I used to make them when Noah was a boy. Carolyn helped by setting the table, moving slowly but deliberately. Noah put on Christmas music and danced around the kitchen like an idiot, making us both laugh. It was not perfect. There were awkward silences, moments when none of us knew what to say, memories that surfaced and made us all uncomfortable. But we pushed through. We kept trying, and that was enough. After breakfast, we gathered in the living room to open presents. Noah gave me a new set of tools, top of the line. The kind I had been eyeing for months, but could never justify buying for myself. "You did not have to do this," I said. "I know," he replied, "but you deserve it." I gave Noah an envelope. Inside was a check, enough to pay off the rest of his student loans. His eyes went wide. "Dad, this is too much." "It is exactly right," I said. "You have worked hard. You deserve to start the new year debt-free." He hugged me tight. Thank you so much." Then it was Carolyn's turn. She had not expected to be here. She had not brought any presents, but she had something else. She reached into her bathrobe pocket and pulled out a small envelope, worn and creased, like it had been carried around for years. "I wrote this a long time ago," she said. "I was never brave enough to send it, but I want you to have it now." She handed the envelope to me. I opened it carefully. Inside was a letter, handwritten on lined paper, dated January 15th, 2006. 3 weeks after she left. I read it silently. "Dear Don, I do not know if you will ever see this letter. I do not know if I will ever have the courage to send it. But I need to write it anyway, even if it is just for myself. I'm so sorry. I know those words are not enough. I know they cannot undo what I have done. But I need you to know that I did not leave because I stopped loving you. I left because I stopped loving myself. I was drowning, Don. Every day felt like I was sinking deeper and deeper into a darkness I could not escape. I tried to fight it. I tried to pretend everything was fine. But I was losing, and I was terrified that if I stayed, I would drag you and Noah down with me. So I ran. I ran because I was a coward. I ran because I did not know how to ask for help. I ran because I thought you would both be better off without me. I was wrong. I know that now. I knew it the moment I drove away and saw our house disappear in my rearview mirror. But by then, it was too late. I had already broken everything. I think about you every day. I think about Noah every day. I wonder what you are doing. I wonder if you are happy. I wonder if you hate me. You probably do. You should. But I hope that someday, somehow, you can find it in your heart to forgive me. Not for my sake. For yours. Because carrying hate is exhausting. And you deserve to be free. I love you, Don. I always have. I always will. And I am so, so sorry. Carolyn. I finished reading and looked up. Carolyn was watching me, tears streaming down her face. I wrote that 3 weeks after I left, she said. I have carried it with me ever since. I must have read it 1,000 times. But I could never send it. I was too afraid. I folded the letter carefully and placed it back in the envelope. Why are you giving it to me now? I asked. Because I do not want to die with secrets, she said simply. I want you to know the truth. All of it. Even the parts I am ashamed of. I looked at that envelope in my hands. 19 years of pain and regret, compressed into a few handwritten pages, and I made a decision. "Thank you," I said, "for being honest, for finally telling me the truth." She nodded, unable to speak. I reached over and took her hand. Her fingers were thin and cold, fragile. "I cannot promise you forever," I said. "I cannot promise that everything will be okay. But I can promise you this: you are not alone anymore. Whatever time you have left, you will spend it with your family." Carolyn broke down completely. She sobbed into her hands, her whole body shaking. Noah moved to her side and wrapped his arms around her. I joined them a moment later. The three of us held each other in the soft morning light, the Christmas tree glowing beside us, the wooden stars shining at the top. We were broken, all of us. But we were together, and that was the greatest gift of all. The days after Christmas passed slowly, the way time does when you know it is running out. Carolyn stayed with us, not just for Christmas, but for the weeks and months that followed. We converted the guest room into her room. Noah helped me move in a comfortable chair and a small television. We hung some of her photographs on the walls, made it feel like home. She had good days and bad days. On the good days, she would come downstairs and sit with us in the living room. We would talk about old times. She would tell Noah stories from his childhood that he had never heard. She would laugh at my terrible jokes the same way she used to laugh 30 years ago. On the bad days, she stayed in bed. The pain was too much. The exhaustion, too heavy. I would bring her soup and tea and sit with her while she slept. Sometimes I would read to her from the worn Bible she had brought with her. Sometimes I would just hold her hand in silence. The doctors had given her 6 months, maybe less. She made it 4. In those 4 months, something remarkable happened. We became a family again. Not the family we used to be. That family was gone forever. But a new family, built on honesty and forgiveness and the understanding that life is too short for grudges. Noah visited every weekend, sometimes more. He would bring groceries and cook dinner for us. He would sit with his mother for hours, asking her questions, listening to her answers, filling in the gaps of a childhood he barely remembered. I watched them together, and my heart ached with a bittersweet joy. They were making up for lost time. Every conversation, every laugh, every tear was a brick in the bridge they were building between them, and Carolyn blossomed. Despite the cancer eating away at her body, her spirit grew stronger. She smiled more. She laughed more. She told us she had not felt this peaceful in decades. "I spent so many years running," she said one evening, "running from my mistakes, running from my shame, running from the people I loved. But I am done running now. I am exactly where I am supposed to be." As for me, I found something I had not expected to find: closure. For 19 years, I had carried a wound that would not heal, a question that had no answer, a pain that had no remedy. But in those final months with Carolyn, the wound finally began to close. We talked about everything: the good years and the bad years, the mistakes we both made, the things we should have said but never did, the love that had been buried under layers of hurt and resentment. I will not pretend it was easy. There were nights when the old anger came back. Nights when I wanted to scream at her for all the years she had stolen from us. Nights when I questioned whether I was a fool for letting her back into my life. But then I would look at her, thin and frail, fighting a battle she could not win. And I would remember why I had chosen forgiveness, not for her sake, for mine. Holding on to hate is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Someone told me that once, a long time ago. I did not understand it then, but I understand it now. Forgiving Carolyn did not erase what she had done. It did not make the past okay, but it set me free. It lifted a weight off my shoulders that I had been carrying for almost 2 decades. And in its place, I found something I had not felt in years: peace. Carolyn passed away on a Tuesday morning in late April. It was quiet, peaceful, the way she wanted it. Noah and I were both there. We had been taking turns, sitting with her through the night, holding her hand, telling her it was okay to let go. Around dawn, She opened her eyes one last time. She looked at Noah, then at me. And she smiled. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Then she closed her eyes and slipped away. The funeral was small. Just a few people. Noah and me. A couple of Carolyn's friends from her recovery group in Cincinnati. The pastor from the church down the street. We held it at the cemetery in Gahanna, not far from the house. The same cemetery where my parents are buried. It felt right to have her there. Close to home. Noah spoke at the service. He talked about his mother. The woman she was before she left. The woman she became after. The courage it took for her to reach out after so many years. The grace she showed in her final months. She was not perfect, he said. None of us are. But she taught me something important. It is never too late to change. It is never too late to ask for forgiveness. It is never too late to come home. I could not have said it better myself. After the funeral, Noah and I drove back to the house in silence. The trees were starting to bloom. The air was warm and soft. Spring had arrived, the way it always does, bringing new life after the cold darkness of winter. We sat on the porch together, 2 cups of coffee between us, watching the sun set over the neighborhood. "How are you doing, Dad?" Noah asked. I thought about the question, really thought about it. "I am sad," I admitted. "But I am also grateful. Grateful that she came back. Grateful that we had those months together. Grateful that we got to say goodbye." Noah nodded slowly. "Me too." We sat in silence for a while. Then he spoke again. "Do you think she is at peace now?" I looked up at the sky. The clouds were turning pink and orange, painted by the setting sun. "I do," I said. "I really do." That summer, Noah got engaged. Her name is Megan. A kind, smart, beautiful woman he had been dating for 2 years. She had met Carolyn a few times in those final months, and Carolyn had adored her. "She is the one," Carolyn had told me once, when Noah and Megan were in the kitchen making dinner. "I can see it in the way he looks at her. The same way you used to look at me." She was right. Noah proposed on the 4th of July, under a sky full of fireworks. Megan said yes, before he even finished the question. They are getting married next spring. I have already been told I am walking him down the aisle. Apparently, that is a thing now. Fathers walking their sons. I do not fully understand it. But I am honored nonetheless. Life has a way of surprising you. If you had told me 2 years ago that I would reconcile with my ex-wife, I would have laughed in your face. If you had told me that she would spend her final months living in my house, I would have called you crazy. But here I am, 62 years old, retired, living alone in the same house I have lived in for 30 years. But not lonely. Not anymore. Noah visits every Sunday for dinner. We cook together, the way we used to when he was a boy. We talk about his work, his wedding plans, his hopes for the future. Sometimes we talk about his mother. The memories are still painful, but they are also precious. I have started going to church again, not because I found religion, but because I found community, a group of people who gather every week to remind each other that we are not alone, that we are all struggling, that we all need grace. And I have started volunteering at the local hospital, sitting with patients who have no one else, holding their hands, listening to their stories, letting them know that someone cares. It is not much, but it is something. And after 62 years on this earth, I have learned that something is always better than nothing. The wooden star still sits on top of my Christmas tree. Every year, when December comes around, I take it out of the box where I keep it safe. I hold it in my hands and remember the young man who carved it, the young woman who received it, the family we built and lost and found again. Then I place it at the very top of the tree, where it belongs, and I say a little prayer. For Carolyn, for Noah, for Megan, for all the people I have loved and lost along the way. Life is short. Shorter than we think. And the things that matter most are not the things we accumulate, but the relationships we build. The forgiveness we offer. The love we give and receive. I learned that lesson late, but I learned it, and I am grateful. If you are listening to this story right now, I want you to know something. Whatever pain you are carrying, whatever grudge you are holding, whatever wound refuses to heal, it is not too late. It is not too late to forgive. It is not too late to reach out. It is not too late to say the words you have been afraid to say. Life is too short for hate, too precious for regret, too beautiful for bitterness. I know that now. It took me 60 years and a mysterious green box under a Christmas tree to figure it out. But I got there, eventually. And if I can do it, so can you. That Christmas Eve, my son told me not to open the gifts. He was trying to protect me, trying to control when and how I would learn the truth. But the truth has a way of coming out, whether we are ready for it or not. The gift that was not from any of us turned out to be the most important gift I have ever received. Not because of what was inside the box, but because of what it opened inside of me. A door I had kept locked for 19 years. A heart I had kept guarded for even longer. A capacity for forgiveness I did not know I still possessed. So that is my story. The story of a 60-year-old electrician from Columbus, Ohio. A man who thought he had life figured out. A man who learned, in the final chapter of his ex-wife's life, that he still had so much to learn. I do not know how much time I have left. None of us do. But I know how I want to spend it. With my son, with my future daughter-in-law, with the grandchildren I hope to meet someday. Building memories, sharing meals, telling stories, living, really living. Because that is what Carolyn taught me in the end. Not through her words, but through her actions. It is never too late to come home. It is never too late to start over. It is never too late to love. Thank you for listening to my story. If it resonated with you, I would love to know. Leave a comment and tell me where you are watching from. Tell me your story. Tell me about the relationships you are mending, the forgiveness you are offering, the second chances you are giving. We are all in this together. All of us. Stumbling through life, making mistakes, trying to do better. And sometimes, if we are lucky, we get a mysterious green box under our Christmas tree that changes everything. Merry Christmas. And God bless. One final request. You just spent almost 40 minutes with me. I gave you everything I had. Now I am asking for one thing in return. Subscribe. If you enjoyed this and still choose not to subscribe, that is your choice. But sit with that decision for a moment. You made it to the end. You felt something. And yet, you are choosing not to support the person who created it. If you have a reason, tell me in the comments. If you have no reason, fix it right now. Subscribe. Thank you for listening. I will see you in the next one.